Welcome to the To Fight For podcast. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Heather. We're offering you a seat at our table to join our conversations, which center on healing through reimagining hospitality in relationships. This season, we are focusing on building and maintaining authentic, healthy friendships.
Our friendship has been through the ringer, but now it's stronger than ever because we chose to fight for it. Our hope is to inspire you to fight for yours.
Hey, listeners, we're back. And today we want to dive into narcissism. And I'm going to say, honestly, I'm a little nervous about this one because I feel the weight and the heaviness that this word carries in our culture today. As someone who has really worked through a lot of healing in my own life previously in the past few years, I have done a lot of examining, a lot of growing, which I've shared thus far on the podcast. And as I have worked on my own healing and growing, I have found the strength and the confidence to be able to communicate my feelings to the people in my life that I love. So when I'm feeling hurt or there's a behavior or something in another person that is leaving me feel a lack of peace or discomfort, I'm able to approach. But what I've sensed is not everybody is very willing to receive what I have to say. In my experience, when I confront a friend, which, I do with fear and trepidation because I hate confrontation. I'm usually like shaking and overthinking and crying when I have to be like, oh, you hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
I feel that deeply. But the best word that embraces how I feel I've been met with is narcissism. The inability to receive or validate my feelings, to hear me out. And as I've examined patterns of behavior in these moments where I've sat down and talked with people, there are some patterns that keep coming to the surface. And we wanted to talk about that today. The difference between narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder, which are two different things.
Yeah.
And you, Jamie, are going to get into the science behind that because we want to differentiate that. Today, we want to talk about narcissism, but I want you to elaborate on the differences because we're not talking about a personality disorder.
Right. Yeah. So as Heather mentioned, there's two different words here, narcissistic and narcissism. Okay. When I talk about narcissistic, in talking about narcissistic personality disorder, these are traits like arrogance, entitlement, a lack of empathy, and people with this type of disorder focus on how others have let them down. So instead of thinking an example, because sometimes it's easier to give examples, right? Instead of thinking I'm not good enough, somebody with narcissistic personality disorder is going to say, everybody in my life disappoints me. Nobody can do anything right. That is typically the pattern of thoughts that people have with narcissistic personality disorder. So then you have narcissism. Okay, this is personality traits or styles with patterns of behaviors. That's super important. Okay, so narcissism tends to be self-involvement, and they can have a sense of superiority, but superiority can also come with narcissistic personality disorder. So it is confusing when we talk or think about both of them because they can be intertwined, but they are two separate entities. Let me say it like this. So narcissism is the name of a pattern or a trait of thinking and behaving. Narcissistic is a person who has a pattern of severe and intense behaviors.
Okay. So one is a personality disorder and another one is a behavior.
Yes.
That can be rooted in maybe different origins.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. When you look at the neuroscience of people who have narcissistic personality disorder, they have less gray matter in their brain. And so the gray matter in people's brains have to do with empathy, self-regulation, controlling their emotions, a number of different things. But I'm just going to kind of leave it at that right now. So somebody who has NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, in their brain, they have less gray matter than somebody who doesn't have narcissistic personality disorder.
Okay.
They tend to be less empathetic. They tend to lack self regulation and emotional regulation. They also have altered white matter in their brain, which can prevent them from having conversations and information processing.
Okay.
So their brains, neurologically, are different than people who don't have the disorder.
So then, if we're talking about the way that the brain is wired, would you say it's harder for a person to change who has narcissistic personality disorder rather than someone who is exhibiting narcissism in their conflict resolution?
Very good question. Yes. Somebody who has
Okay.
narcissistic personality disorder, it's going to be very difficult for them to change.
So we see that more present in abusive relationships.
Yes.
Okay.
With the people that I have treated with narcissistic personality disorder, they come and they would see me on a weekly basis, and their treatment is never going to stop. Typically, people who have narcissistic personality disorder will be in counseling or psychotherapy for their whole life, and people in their life they don't have relationships with
Okay.
because the people tend to break away because they can't deal with what is happening and the lack of self-regulation and lack of emotional regulation and empathy.
Okay.
But people who have narcissism can act in a similar way, which is why this is so confusing.
Mhm.
But narcissism is you're not going to a counselor and necessarily being diagnosed with that. It would be, are you exhibiting narcissism like behaviors? So I know I've thought to myself, gosh, when I've been in relationships with people, this seems very narcissistic like to me. I'm not saying that they have narcissistic personality disorder.
Mhm.
I'm saying my interactions with them or my conversations, like you were saying
Mhm.
earlier, when you're sharing your feelings and you feel like they're not accepting or hearing what you're saying,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean they have narcissistic personality disorder,
Mhm.
but they can exhibit narcissism behaviors.
Okay.
And narcissism behaviors are much more self centered than a person with narcissistic personality disorder.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's a good segue into what I wanted to talk about today. I'd like to take us back to the early zeros. What do you call like the first decade of AD? I don't know. The early zeros. I'm just going to call it that.
Yeah.
We are delving into Greek mythology here. So there's this youth, a very beautiful, handsome, drop dead gorgeous youth named Narcissus. Narcissus without a T at the end of it. So Narcissus, he was not a Greek god. He was a Greek mythological figure. His father was a Greek god. His mother was a nymph. Now, as we talk about Greek mythology developed as a means of articulating cultural and social patterns in Greek society. So it kind of became this storytelling amplified the personal lives of people who were living in, the first couple centuries here. So we have Greek mythology as this means of storytelling to communicate actual patterns that were prevalent in Greek society. So, when we look at these early days, storytelling existed for those of us who paid attention in history class, oral tradition, right? Oral tradition carried on stories for thousands and thousands of years. And
Mhm.
so Greek mythology is another way of that storytelling coming out and explaining this is what we see and this is how we see it. So these stories were very descriptive of that culture. Parallel that to biblical times, which paralleled the Hellenistic or Greek culture, we have Jesus who comes in and tells parables. So he is also storytelling, but how he tells his parables is in a very rich, true way that people can identify with. We have his parables of the sower, of farmers, of scattering seed, of lost prodigal sons returning home after squandering an inheritance. He's telling stories that people can very readily relate to. So he's taking out mythological figures and he's saying, here's a real tangible way of living here. And this is what following me looks like lived out in your day-to-day life. Whereas the Greek mythology was a very amplified, fictional kind of way of portraying culture.
Right. And so I'm going to stop you there for a second because I am not really into history, everybody. I'm more of like a science and math brain. So if I'm hearing you correctly, how I interpret what you're saying is Jesus came and told stories, and it could be relatable to people's own personal experiences.
Correct.
Where like Greek mythology would be this god caused storms or helped people, and it
Hmm.
was things that the human was not going to ever really experience.
Correct.
Oh,
Yes.
got it.
So Narcissus is this youth. He's a very gorgeous young man, and he's so beautiful that he becomes enamored with himself. Now, his father, ironically, was the river god. So it's very interesting to me that he becomes obsessed with his own reflection. What ends up happening is this guy he's very self-absorbed. He's rejecting suitors, and relationships are falling by the wayside because nobody can match his beauty. He's so obsessed with himself, very self-absorbed. So what happens is he ends up being cursed. He ends up never being able to draw his eyes away from his own reflection in the water,
Hmm.
and he dies by the water. And we hear of the narcissus flower, which apparently grows up where he died. It's a symbol. That's kind of the way that the story goes.
Hmm.
So the story isn't going to come out of nowhere, right? Well, there's a story that's being told here of, look, this is what looks like when you become very vain and self-absorbed. You become obsessed with yourself, and your relationships will fall by the wayside. Nobody will be good enough for you. And your self-obsession and self-idolatry and self-worship is going to be the death of you.
Hmm.
So this is the story that is being communicated. Now, as we project Narcissus onto our culture today, I'm seeing a lot of similarities, except that the water becomes the cell phone.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
second the selfie was created and we were able to flip that camera onto ourselves, our culture shifted majorly. This is hard. It's a hard thing to talk to, because I think when we really start seeing these patterns emerge, and we start really looking at what's happening here in our culture, it's heartbreaking. But I truly believe that we have become a society where the main idol that we are facing right now is ourselves. We've become very, very much like Narcissus with reels and selfies on social media. Social media has amplified
Hmm.
this worship of the self, where we are seeking likes and views and affirmation from strangers and admiration. And, oh, look, this person shared my post. We're seeking this dopamine hit, but it's rooted even in something much, much deeper, where we are becoming very, very much into ourselves and putting ourselves out there. I once heard someone refer to influencers as celebrities. I mean, I don't know when that happened.
Yeah.
I thought a celebrity was a movie star. When celebrityism becomes this attainable thing and everyone's chasing after it, there's a self-promotion and a self-worship that is happening here. As we apply this to friendship and conflict resolution, what I'm seeing is this trend, okay? And I'm going to try my best to explain this, because in my head it sounds very complicated here, but I'd like to think of us as individuals. The individual should be rooted in a secure, confident place, knowing their identity in Jesus. We are created to be other-oriented. So I am not so concerned about myself as much as I am concerned about the other. This is what Jesus teaches us. This is what he teaches us through his parables. This is how he models his life.
Hmm.
Be otherness aware. With that, I believe, comes a sense of individuality, where we are embracing who we are. We're confident. We know our giftings. We know how to operate and love others because of who we are, right? So there is this sense of individualism. And I'm not talking about a lack of community. I don't want to attach community to this particular analogy, because we are called to live in community. So I'm not speaking against that per se. But what I'm seeing, and what I want to contrast this individuality with, is this conformity. Okay, so we have individuality and we have conformity. And how I'm seeing this playing out is, we have people who we call influencers telling us how to dress, how to do our hair, how to do our makeup. We see people who are, going viral. Even in our political realm, you either are here or here. There's this sense of conformity. And as we start imitating other people around us in our culture. We live in a culture that begs to be imitated. Imitate this, imitate this, imitate this, because we're all seeking building ourselves up to be the ideal of what we want to be. In doing so, we are losing our individuality, right? Because we're
Right.
conforming to everything around us. And what's happening is we're becoming so self-absorbed in that striving to become our own ideal that we are in turn becoming completely self-absorbed. We're unable to see outward and be otherness aware. So that when someone comes to us with a conflict, or here's Heather saying, hey, I love you, but you hurt my feelings. What I'm finding is defensiveness. I'm all of a sudden an attacker because I said I have hurt feelings. It becomes my problem. Like this is how I have felt when I have confronted people. And it's hard to be on that side because I love this person enough to confront. I love this person enough to say, hey, I want you to be the best version that you can be. And I want there to be wholeness and healing in our relationship. But that's not what I'm meeting. And so I'm speaking this from my own perspective here. But what I would love to see is this awakening in our culture to take a look at what are we doing when we stare into our phones and we're completely self-absorbed and we want to watch our own videos of us and see our own pictures of us and see those likes and views and clicks and all of that. How is that impacting our real relationships? Are we able to respond to people approaching us with conflict, or is it fracturing this fragile self-conforming image that we've created?
Yeah. So you mentioned dopamine. So I want to talk about that really quickly. Narcissism personality disorder. They don't have dopamine hits. So I know I gave a little bit of science in the beginning. They don't have dopamine hits. When you try to have conversations with them about their behavior, they are blaming you for everything, but it's because their brain can't process what you are saying. They don't have the ability to be empathetic. What we're talking about here is narcissism. Narcissism is linked to huge dopamine hits.
Okay.
So, and most of us probably know this, you get on your phone and you see that little heart on Instagram or the little thumbs up on Facebook. It's releasing dopamine in your brain. The same as eating a pint of ice cream, smoking a vape, drinking a glass of wine. It's all doing the same thing in your brain.
Okay.
It's making you feel better about yourself. Ooh, I want to do that again. So when we're talking about promoting yourself and putting all these pictures and sharing your entire life on social media, it's releasing dopamine in your brain. And then what happens if we take a substance abuse addiction? You have to do more and more every single time you do it, because dopamine gets less and less, and you are never going to achieve that same thing. I think it is extremely related to cell phones. So you mentioned when the cameras got flipped around, then it was like every once in a while people would post some videos, but then all these apps started coming out. You could edit the way you look.
Ooh, a filter.
Yes.
Ooh, I can look like a supermodel too.
Right. I can look like that. I can take a picture of myself with no makeup on and it's going to look like I have makeup on. So now I'm getting all these dopamine hits. It's reward-seeking behavior, which is what's happening. It's reward-seeking. Same thing as any type of addiction is. And I know some people may not agree with this, but we are addicted to our phones, which is causing us to be narcissism-like behaviors, which is the demise of most of our relationships.
Yeah, I totally feel that.
Yeah, because let's be honest. How many of us have gone to a restaurant? I know I have. And I'm sitting there looking at other people and everybody is on their phone.
Yeah, what on earth?
Like a friend group, family. I've seen that before, where there's like 25 people at this big table and everybody is on their phone except for the older generation, and they're just sitting there staring out into space.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy. And that's the demise of our relationships because we are so self-involved.
Gosh, it makes me, I'm reminded of, we were at Disney World a couple of years ago and we were leaving this hotel So I'm sitting in the car and my husband is loading up the luggage in the back. And I'm looking at it, looked like a grandma, a mom, and maybe a 2-year old. And they were sitting on a bench in front of some bushes in front of this hotel. Well, the grandma is on one side of the mom and the little kid is on the other side. The kid is like falls backwards into the bush. He looked like a little elf with his feet sticking out of the bush. You couldn't even see his body. But the mom was on her phone. But you could tell she was fixing her hair and puckering her lips like she was just looking at herself. She had no idea that the kid sitting right next to her fell back into the bushes. And the grandma on the other side of the mom got up, walked around the mom, and pulled the kid out of the bushes. And I remember looking at that and just being like, what on earth? You're right there and you don't even see it because you're just fixing your hair in your phone. And
Mhm.
I think about that when we are thinking about narcissists and just this preoccupation of the self and how that is impacting our ability to engage with people in conflict. I have a question for you. Have you ever hit the dislike button on somebody's post? There's a thumbs
Hmm.
down. Have you ever seen a
That's a
thumbs
good
down?
question.
I
It's a
don't
good
think I
I
ever have.
don't know if I have, honestly.
Yeah, because like
I
if you don't
can't
like
think of.
something, you just don't engage with the post, right?
Right, I just scroll past it and I'll be like, "Okay, whatever," and I scroll past it.
Mhm.
I don't know if I've ever hit the dislike. I think I have maybe on occasion shared people's posts and I've put why I disagree with that,
Mhm.
but I don't know if I've ever hit the thumbs down.
It makes me wonder in a relationship, and let's say you've done something that has hurt me, and I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. We've kind of talked about this as we've
Mhm.
had these podcasts. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. I'm approaching you and I'm like, hey, this hurt my feelings. That might feel like the dislike button, even though I'm not disliking you, right? I love you enough to confront you and say, hey, this hurt me because I want to work through the conflict.
Right.
So we're reframing our mind to think like that. But I'm hitting the dislike. I disliked this behavior. And I'm wondering, is approaching somebody in conflict who's obsessed with themselves, does that feel like the dislike button? And then is it fracturing this very fragile exterior, emphasized self image that we're trying to put into the world through social media or whatever? And it's causing this narcissism like response of, you don't fit into my ideal anymore. And I'm going to respond and play the victim.
Mhm. Yeah, right. I think it probably does.
Yeah.
If you dislike a post or you have a confrontation with somebody who has narcissism behaviors, they're so self-involved that they can't even receive what you are saying.
Mm-hmm.
This is the difference, though. They have the ability to
Mm-hmm.
have
Right.
empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody with NPD does not have the brain capacity to have empathy.
Mm-hmm.
But the person who is being absorbed, that part of their brain, they have essentially turned it off.
Okay.
Or maybe only have a certain amount of empathy with people in their life. I
Mm.
have a lot of empathy towards my kids,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to have a whole lot of empathy towards my friends when they confront me,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
I think that that's a huge possibility
Okay.
because our brains are neuroplastic. So whatever we practice, it becomes us.
Okay.
So if there's a lack of empathy, then your brain is going to start slowly shutting down
Mm-hmm.
that gray matter and turn off the empathy button.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is true of violence. I'm using this as just an example. I'm not saying everybody feels this way, but from conversations I've had with some people, we look at the bombings, the school shootings, people getting mugged, being attacked. Sometimes when you're scrolling through social media, you're just like, ugh, this again. And then you scroll right past it.
Mm.
It's because our brains have seen so much of this and we aren't responding in a way because it feels like it's across the world or across a city. We have a little less empathy for that now. Oh, we have a little less empathy. So we
Mm-hmm.
see it and we're like, oh, that sucks. And then we just scroll by.
Mm.
It's a learned behavior.
Yeah.
Not, I guess, let me take that back. it can be a learned behavior from your parents or whoever your caregiver is. If they have a
Mhm.
lack of empathy, you're typically going to have a lack of empathy. But it also is a behavior that you can make bigger and bigger in your life because you aren't practicing it,
Hmm.
which is why I think narcissism, people who are obsessed with themselves and only their perspective matters, they have almost shut down that part of empathy and communication in their brain
Hmm.
themselves.
Okay. Okay. Well, what I would like to do is talk about, let's say you and I sit down and we have a conflict. What would a behavioral response look like that's rooted in narcissism versus what should a behavioral response look like that's healthy? Can we
Hmm.
compare and contrast those?
Yeah.
So let's say I've kind of listed a couple of these just in my own experience, and I'd like you to add to them, but it would look like the inability to have empathy, right? Which you were just talking about. Playing the victim is big with narcissism like behavior. I might be coming to you and saying, "This hurt me,"
Hmm.
but a response rooted in narcissism is going to be you would play the victim and turn it on me, even though
Yeah.
I'm the one bringing the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I say, let's role play. Let's role play this
Ooh,
out for our audience.
okay. You wanna be the narcissist?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me see. Uh okay. So let's role play this. Jamie is going to exhibit a response rooted in narcissism, and
Hmm.
I will be the innocent victim.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. Jamie, there's something I wanted to talk to you about, and I've kind of waffled back and forth because, that's what I do. I tend to overthink things. But, the past few months have been really hard on both of us. I feel like I know you just had surgery and your kiddo just broke his leg, and it's a busy season for your family in terms of work and sports and all of that. But I feel like as your friend, despite all the stuff that's been going on in my life, I've still shown up for you. I brought you a meal that one time that you weren't feeling well, and I've
Hmm.
picked up your kids from sports practice and things like that. But last week, I got that really devastating news. And I don't know, in a moment when I really needed you, I just felt like you were not there. And as my friend, in ways that I feel like I love you and I want to be there for you, but I really want that from you as well.
Hmm. You know I love you, right?
Well, yeah, I know you love me.
Okay. So I do love you.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure that you know that I do love you. That like we both know that we love each other.
Right. But I really I think what I needed from you in that moment was I needed your presence. I really just wanted you there for me that night when I was just crying and everything. I knew that you didn't have anything going on that night. You had told me that you were free, and I don't know. I guess I'm not upset that you didn't come over, but I think even just talking to me or engaging with me, I just needed you in that minute.
Well, I think you are upset that I didn't come over. That's what you're saying, but you're not saying it. You're upset that I didn't come over to sit with you or be in that moment with you when I guess you were having a hard time.
Well, I guess I just was hurt because I feel like I've shown up for you. I've done those things for you. I have been present, actually physically present for you when you've been struggling.
Yeah, you have been, because I have been really, really struggling. I had surgery, and one of my kids broke their leg, and I've just been down. I've not been able to drive. I just feel like my life is spiraling out of control. I've been really down. It's been a really hard couple of weeks, months. To me, it seems like years. I know it's not been years, but I feel like I've really been struggling for a really long time. And it's hard to be present with my own self. So I, I'm not, I guess I'm not sure what to say.
I guess I just feel like, I don't know, I feel disappointed that I can't rely on you in the same way that you were able to rely on me.
Hmm.
Do you think that's fair of me to ask that or to want that from you?
Um, I don't, I know I know you've shown up for me, and maybe I feel like you're upset that I didn't show up for you, but you are forgetting maybe everything that I'm going through and how much I'm struggling. So I just, I don't know. I can't. I can't really show up for you because my life is in chaos and I need people to show up for me.
If I stopped showing up for you, how would you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd be mad, but my life is so chaotic right now.
I know, but mine is too.
Yeah, I would probably be upset, but there are times that I have shown up for you. If you remember times, I have shown up for you when things have been difficult. So I do show up for you.
Yeah, I guess it's been so long. Like you said, it's been chaotic. Can you give me an example of a time that you've shown up for me recently? Because I don't want to fight. You know, it's not my heart to fight, but I'm just having a hard time really feeling loved by you.
Hmm. Well, I don't know. I don't keep a record of when I've shown up for you. I just know I've shown up for you multiple times with your family, like brought meals or helped drive kids, maybe is what I'm talking about. And I just feel like you're attacking me a little bit that I didn't show up for you that one time when my life is so chaotic. Okay, we're gonna end there.
Hmm.
Is that good? You want to end there?
Yeah, let's
We
end
didn't
there.
actually rehearse this, everybody. So this
No.
we're just totally trying to do this as we're going.
But it felt very real though to me because I've found myself in conversations like that where you feel like you're just going in circles.
Yep.
I'm trying my best to communicate how I feel without attacking you. And I'm meeting this feeling like I'm attacking you. And then I'm like, wait a second, how am I not communicating this accurately? You know, like I feel like I'm
Right.
saying what I need to say while giving you the benefit of the doubt.
And did you feel like I was listening to you?
No, and you weren't answering any of my questions. And
No.
you were like, you know, I love you, right? I mean, I felt like you're questioning I almost felt like you were questioning my sanity or like I
Hmm.
wasn't seeing what I was supposed to see, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the things that I did there, or at least I tried to do. Hopefully, we did it well enough for you to understand what was happening,
Hmm.
because we didn't script this. So Heather didn't even know I was going to ask her to role play.
Yeah, I'm feeling nervous too. Like, dude, I'm like, oh, my adrenaline's up because in reality, that's a conversation that has really happened in my life. And
Yeah.
it's hard to walk through that being on the receiving end of someone that's gaslighting you or making you question what you're remembering or whatever. Like, that sucks. And as someone who doesn't like conflict, I feel uncomfortable even though that interaction was not real.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do want to point that out. You said gaslighting. I did
Mhm.
gaslight you.
Mm.
I also did in the very beginning. You know, I love you, right? I do love you. That's called love bombing.
Okay.
So when you are trying to have a serious conversation with somebody and you're confronting them because you feel like you want to share your feelings because you feel frustrated or hurt or angry or whatever the emotion is, right? The person's just like, well, you know, I love you, right? What's your problem?
Mhm.
Like, I love you. Why are you making such a big deal about this?
Yeah.
That's love bombing. So
Okay.
I love bombed you. I gaslit you. I was playing the victim.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going through all of my own stuff. My life is really chaotic. I have all this stuff going on in my life.
You never even asked me how I was doing
No,
or
nope,
about my struggle or anything. Nothing was ever put back on me. There was no sense of empathy at all from you.
no, there
Yeah.
wasn't. Because somebody who has this type of behavior, it's all about me in the role
Hmm.
play. I was listening to what you were saying, kind of,
Hmm.
but I was like, what is she doing?
Mm.
This is about me. I'm having a really rough time in my life. Yes, sure, you've shown up for me, but really? We're going to make this about you? This needs to be about me right now.
Hmm. Yeah, I felt like everything I tried to communicate, even with the best of intentions, you kind of twisted it.
Hmm.
And then I almost felt like it was put back on me. And then I had to come up with another way to word the same thing. That's why I felt like I was going in circles.
Yeah.
I had to keep explaining myself.
Yeah, right. If we look at this from a healthy friendship and relationship, what I should have said when you confronted me and said, listen, I've been there for you. I went through this situation. I knew you were free. You didn't show up at my house, is what you said to me in
Hmm.
the very beginning.
Hmm.
And then I was like, you know, I love you. Instead, if it's a healthy relationship, it should look something like this. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that you were feeling that way. I'm sorry that I didn't show up for you. I didn't mean to not show up for you. I've been so self-absorbed, I guess, or I've been stuck in my own world. I didn't even realize that I didn't show up for you. I wish that you would have said something. I wish you would have called me and said, Jamie, I just need you to be here, because
Mm.
I would have been there. I
Mhm.
didn't even know that that happened, but thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah. I think what I love about that response too is that without making me feel bad for communicating it, you're like, this is a vulnerability that I have right now. I am very self absorbed. I have a lot going on. Me saying you weren't there for me does not negate your current circumstances,
Correct.
but it enables you to see out of those circumstances. Instead
Hmm.
of looking at yourself, you're able to finally see me and like, oh, she was hurting too. And I've been so self-absorbed that I'm not seeing the other people in my life who are also going through something. So in that moment, you were vulnerable when you admitted, I've been self-absorbed. And my response then would be, thanks for saying that. I do love you and I want you there for me. You're the
Yep.
person I want by my side when I'm struggling. And I think there's this tender moment that can happen when we realize we can still be there for one another, even out of our own, dire situations when life
Yeah.
is hard.
Hmm. Yeah. Because there has been times in our relationship where we both have been struggling and we're like, we're just going to get together.
Hmm.
We're just going to have a glass of wine
Hmm.
and we're just going to kind of sit here. And
Hmm.
sometimes we have a lot of conversation and sometimes we have very little conversation, and
Hmm.
it's very surface level because neither
Hmm.
one of us have the energy to have a real conversation. It doesn't mean that we don't have a real friendship. Just
Hmm.
right then in that season of life, we
Hmm.
just need somebody to be present. I
Hmm.
need you to just be present in the room with me as a person. We don't always have to have these crazy intense conversations.
Hmm.
But when somebody comes to you and they say, I have been hurt, if you are not actively listening, you cannot hear what they are saying. And if you have been not practicing active listening, which let's be honest, most of us probably don't do that because of how we mentioned our cell phones. We're so self absorbed. We're
Hmm.
never actively listening to people. This is something you have to practice.
Hmm.
And when you go to psychotherapy school or counseling school or social work school, that is one of the biggest things that they teach you. You have to actively listen,
Hmm.
which means you are listening to the person and then you should be able to recite what they have said. So I could say this as a response to Heather. Okay, so I hear what you're saying, Heather. So you feel like I didn't show up for you when you were struggling. Is that's what I hear? And so you feel hurt and you feel sad and maybe you feel like a little angry?
Hmm. Yeah.
And then she'd probably exactly that. She'd be like,
Hmm.
yeah, I do. I'm actively listening. I'm not thinking about the next thing that I'm going to say to her.
Hmm. And you're not defensive either. There was
Not
no
defensive.
I think when we approach one another, we have to take down our defenses. We
Yeah.
cannot be in a fighting stance. I know that we're calling this podcast To Fight For, and we love our boxing gloves. But I think the irony is that it's an open posture fight. We're
Right.
not trying to put up our dukes and battle it out here. And when we're seeing narcissism present in conflict resolution, that is all about putting up your dukes. There is
100%.
nothing about healing. It's not going to promote any sort of space for any sort of resolution in a conflict.
Hmm. You're going to make it all about yourself and you're going to
Hmm.
do all of those behaviors,
Hmm.
love bombing, gaslighting, triangulation. And I'm sure I
Yeah.
did not say that correctly.
Triangulation.
Yeah.
What is that?
So when you take somebody else in a relationship and then it's like two of us against you.
Oh, okay.
So that happens a lot in bigger friend groups.
Ooh, so here's a question then. Let's say we are dealing with narcissism between two friends, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we take this outside of just me and you, a conflict of you not showing up for me.
Okay.
We have a friend group with several other people. Let's say you're done. You're like, I'm tired of feeling like I have to be there for Heather. I just don't want to show up anymore. She's communicated her feelings, and I don't like the way that she makes me feel when she says how she's feeling. It's challenging you. It's calling out your behavior. Even though I'm speaking it in a loving way and I'm saying, hey, I love you, but I want you to be there for me as my friend. You're like, I'm done with this. Peace out. Then what happens to the friend group? What are the patterns that we see in someone who's struggling with narcissism? What does it start to look like? Is the one who is really exhibiting these narcissistic traits, I'll say, not the personality disorder, but the traits. What does that start to look like as a separation between two friends happens?
I think that's a really good question. And honestly, we could do an entire podcast on that. Maybe we should do that.
Yeah.
But I do want to answer the question. So what that's going to look like, triangulation, is going to look like you're involving one other person, or it could be multiple other people. Okay. And so you're thinking of a triangle. So it's your and I's relationship, and then we bring somebody in.
Or you, as the narcissism person, would be confiding and trying to get somebody on your side.
Correct. So then I would go out and be like, I'm done. She keeps telling me that I don't care about her feelings. Everything is always about Heather.
So you're like running a smear campaign, essentially. Yeah. And you might cloak it in, I love her, but. Yeah, you're going to make it sound good because you're playing the victim.
Yeah.
Even though I was the one that actually confronted you to your face and called out your behavior. I'm going to look like the bad guy.
Yeah. So that happens. Oh, it's so complicated. It is very complicated. But the thing is, when you are in a healthy relationship, you should be able to call each other's behaviors out.
Correct.
And I want to say this as we're starting to wrap up. In our friendship number 2, has this been easy? No.
It
has not.
Even the freaking role play, like I just said, I felt like my heart was racing. My arms get tingly when I feel big emotions, and my arms were tingling, and it wasn't even real. So no, I do not like having to say, hey, Jamie, this hurt my feelings. So no, it's not easy. Conflict resolution is not easy, but you and I have committed to loving each other through it. I don't have to love bomb you when you come to me because I know you're approaching me because you love me enough to want to work through the problem. If it's easier for you to walk away, then that says more about your character than it does about mine.
Yeah.
And so I think when I'm confronting you and you're choosing in that moment to stay and work through and hear me out, there is an established love bond that is rooted. And we talk about our faith here. This is what we're taught to do biblically, to confront one another in love, but we are called to rebuke and edify and encourage all of those things. That is what sharpening one another looks like.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to receive it. And we got to stop being so self-absorbed in order to see the other person and their pain.
Yeah. And we have to practice it, which is why, I asked you that question. Is it easy? No. Hell no, it's not easy. It doesn't matter which side you are on, the person doing the confronting or receiving the confrontation. It's not easy, but the only way that we get better at stuff is if we are practicing it. If we don't practice it, how are we ever going to get better at it?
Right.
We're not. And we can change our brains, our neuroplasticity of our brains by practicing it, having serious conversations, and talking to each other.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Till next time.
Till next time. Thank you, everybody, for listening.